Having turned 7,000 iron ingots into 10,000 steel ingots using the Solid Steel Alt recipe, it's time to produce steel for the masses. The only problem is, with vanilla recipes, we'll be producing less than 2,000 steel products per minute, and that is not going to touch the sides of the facility that we have planned in the future. After all, this whole smeltery that we've been working on is only a third built, and it's processing just shy of 50,000 resources per minute. And this is just a taster, just a moosh boosh, if you will. So we're going to improve our steel yield by over 100% with the best steel alt recipes, so that when it's time for the Gigafactory, we'll be well prepped. But the question is, what recipes should we use? Well, we've already used the iron pipe recipe, which, as I mentioned, is a great backup for when coal levels are low. Speaking of which, I need to add some awesome sinks here whilst we wait to set up our trains. And the aluminum beam looks like a pretty cool recipe, but we don't have aluminum available here to use for that, which leaves us with the molded beams and pipes, requiring concrete to supplement our steel production. But we all know that concrete is one of the most easily available resources in the game, making this an A-tier recipe. And knowing that we need to create encased industrial beams, which also use concrete, makes the molded recipes AAA tier in my mind. And unlike AAA game devs, which tend to lack innovation, yes, I'm looking at you, COD, this recipe is truly innovative because it's only been with us since 1.0's release, but it also massively ups our production. So today we're going to be setting up the factory lines for this. And then we're going to have to do some decoration. Now, one thing that we should quickly touch on before we go ahead is why it's so much better. Now, with 60 steel ingots, we're able to produce 15 steel beams per minute. But with the molded beams, we're able to produce 45. And before we jump ahead and say that's 3 times better, it's not. And that's because it's using twice the amount of steel ingots. So we're actually getting, for double the amount of ingots, an extra 15 steel beams. This is coming down to the extra concrete that we're adding. And we're going to be adding a lot of concrete. Each one of these requires 80 concrete, but still that is great given concrete is so easily available. And if we look at our pipe recipe as well, so we have 30 steel ingots here to 20 steel pipes. And then we have the molded steel pipe. So if we compare these, we're taking 50 steel ingots and producing 50 per minute, which is a 1-to-1 ratio. So once again, 50% more efficient in terms of the steel that we're using at the cost of more concrete. So yeah, we're going to have to build a concrete facility, but not today. Today we're going to build the infrastructure for that, which will be on top of here. So we do actually need to start looking at developing a blueprint for that. So let's clear this. So let's start with the first one. This is going to be our molded beam blueprint. And for that, we're going to have to make sure we know how many foundries we need along a line. So with this, let's grab one of these, find the middle section of the second foundation. And from here, we can click this. So we have 120 steel ingots that need to go through this line to produce those 45. So if we take 780, which is our max speed belt, and divide it by 120, that is 6.5 foundries per full line. Unfortunately, that doesn't work very well for us. So if we were to, how many can we fit in here? 4, or possibly if we do 2 tiers, that would be 8. So if we took the 780, divided it by 8, that gives us 97.5, which would be 97.25. There we go, perfect. So if we underclock each of these foundries to 81.25, then we know that we can have one belt coming in of steel ingots feeding these. So the next thing that I want to do is to add a second floor. Actually, I think we might want to move these a little bit further up. Yeah, possibly there. because we're going to want a bit more space for the manifold, given that it's going to have to feed 2 lines if we're doing this on 2 levels. So all we're doing is setting up the manifold for this. Then we'll do a little bit of decorating, try and make it pop a little bit. But the important thing about this theme for the steel build is going to be to make it look industrial, as that's what we were going with this facility. I'm thinking that maybe for the floors here we could use the steel just for the factory section. Maybe do the same here as well. Now we can run the manifold down here. Next, let's grab a splitter. We'll grab a elevator like that, and we're going to also bring up on this side our next line. We need to do this for each of the inputs. Another thing, we're going to have concrete somehow running down here, so we'll do this on a lower floor as well. We're then going to bring all of these up, make sure they're being fed into the facility. I'm going to add some decoration, as I mentioned. I'll probably do some coloring just to make this build pop a little bit more as well. And then we're going to want the resources to come down to a merging line beneath, and that can run the opposite way to our manifold. And because these are all aligned to the foundries above us, what we should find, if I've done this right, is that providing we get the right height, we should be able to run them all the way in. Hey, that is that a feature? I've never seen that before. Yeah, it's not then. Maybe it's just a bug. I thought it was saving the previous height of the elevator before. Anyway, we have that. We're probably going to do some kind of decoration now with these. So we can just run them across there. Maybe do second one. How would that look? Yeah, I quite like that. And then we'll have a support piece underneath. The other thing, we're going to need some kind of pillared supports as well. Maybe we can play around with painting different colors. How does that look? I think we'll also have to do some kind of ceiling as well, but this is the general premise of this build. So I will just decorate this up and show you once it's done. Okay, so I've been working at it for a couple of minutes, and here we are with the finished build. As you can see, we've kind of replicated the 2 floors similarly with the little frames here, and we're using the orange lighting because this is a foundry build. Even if it's not producing ingots, it's still foundries. So I thought, you know what, it's better to stick to that orange smelting light that we decided earlier on. And if you're looking dead on, there's also the steel beams on the sides, just so that you know what this production line is producing. I've also added signs above the conveyor just so that it lights up the resources. Hopefully that'll look pretty cool once it's running, but that's just a small little detail. Now with this, I am going to want to also mirror this build around so that we can flip it so that it's one behind the other or facing one another. And the other thing that we need to look at really quickly is the pipes. So we're consuming 50 per minute. Now it doesn't take a smart aleck to know that 50 does not go into 780 fully. I may not be that smart, but I do know that. So we're going to once again take 780 and divide it by 8. That doesn't work because it's below, it's 50 or below. So if we were to double this blueprint, so we had one followed by another and they were connected, that would be 16. So if we divide this by 16, that gives us 48.75, which actually isn't that bad of an underclock. 48.75, would that be 97.5? There we go. I do know a little maths. So I am going to make this build really easy for us. I'm going to mirror this particular build, and then I'm going to change all of these signs to being steel pipes, and then we're going to just swap these around to steel pipes at 97.5% clock speed. I'll save these as 4 separate blueprints because we'll have the mirrored variant and the normal variant, and that should allow us to get building. So this here is the top of the ceiling at the moment. Beneath we have our iron pipe facility. And you can see we've also got our 2 of the 4 blueprints. The other 2 I haven't added to a hotbar, but they are now done. So we're next going to bring up all of the steel, and I'm going to make sure that it's once again compressed. So we're just going to set up our line here. By the way, all of these blueprints are available on my Patreon if you are interested in getting them for yourself and don't want to go through all the hard work of actually setting these up. And I think we have hundreds now. I'm going to have to work out some way to organize them a little bit better. Once we've got this sorted, we'll be able to dedicate the first resources to the steel beam line. That is because we use steel beams all the time for building and I'm constantly running out. And then we'll have our steel pipes. We only need 2 lines of them. And then all of the rest will be dedicated to producing those encased industrial beams. All right, so that's the compressor done. We will need to trial this at some point, but we can do that once we've got the next floor set up, because this is obviously just for logistics, and we can give ourselves, I think 4 meters isn't really enough, but there's only going to be the steel on this line. So if we were to have it maybe at this height, that should work. So let's grab our first blueprint and we're just gonna make sure that it is aligned. Yeah, that looks right. And then just on this side, we will place this here. It's alive! Well, I say that. It will be shortly. And thinking about it, we actually don't want it there. We're gonna want this there, and then we can have this as the area for all of our resources to go down. So we'll have the concrete and any excess resources running along this section. And then we can take our mirrored variant that I made earlier and place that like so. And then we can do the same again. We are going to be producing 1,995 and each row, oh goodness me, 36.563 times 8 equals 292. Of course, it's something weird like that. Let's take 292504 and we're going to divide it from the 1,995, which gives us 6.82. These are massive blueprints. We're going to have to double them up. The only problem is we're now using all the resources from our dimensional storage. So I'm not sure how many more of these we're going to be able to produce before I need to actually go to the central storage myself in person. Oh, there you go. We're out of alclad sheets and steel beams, surprisingly. Actually, we're not out of steel beams. They've been replenished. One thing that I do need to do is set up some kind of system that allows us to build more freely, because I'm constantly running out of resources. Anyway, I'm gonna go back, grab resources, come back, finish those lines, and we'll see what happens. And here we are with the molded beam and pipe set up, ready to go. But at this point, we are ready to test the lines, and I think it's really important as you're playing the game, if you're doing massive builds like this, that you test your lines before you actually run them. It's what we did in the last episode with the steel ingots. It's time to do it here. So what I'm doing is I'm filling these with concrete and they're going to feed into the line. So we need to bring the steel up and I need to make sure the throughput of steel is high enough to run each of these individually, which means we're only going to turn on one line at a time. However, to do that, I need to now remove all of our awesome sinks and start belting everything up. So let's get started. All right, we've already got these. We need to turn everything around. So we're gonna swap all of these so that they go into the elevators that we have over here. We now have the first of our steel coming along, and that's feeding all the way along. Oh, no, it's not. It's that one that we need. It's feeding to these, but that is fine. Once these are saturated up, all of this is going to flow down. Hang on. Why isn't this flowing down? Oh, no. Oh, I wish I'd given myself more space. There is a problem somewhere along here. because these should be flowing down to the bottom. And the thing is, it's going to be something stupid. It's going to be like a single line over, no, over here? No. I'm going to be here a while.
A few moments later.
Aha! That is one mistake. And now you can see the resources are flowing down here. Can't see if they're flowing anywhere else though, because there's not enough space. Oh wait, yeah, those are full. Fantastic. So this is now working as intended. Wonderful. So we need to head up to the top, but we should see all of these turn on if they're powered. So all I'm going to do, connect it down there. There we go. There is already there's a problem with the blueprint. These aren't connected, which makes sense. And then none of the lower levels are connected either. So we just need to run this all the way across here. I've just realized I'm on a bit of a ticking clock because we've fed the concrete via industrial storage. So I'm going to have to run across and add our conveyor throughput counter. So what we're going to be looking at is we're trying to get 48.75 from 780. We need to see 732 on this line to know that it is running efficiently. And then once it is ready, I'm gonna grab a sign and color it green if it's good. I think so. Obviously, that isn't showing as right yet, so we're going to have to wait a few minutes. Okay, so the good news is all of these are running, or will run, I should say. If they've got the resources, they will run fine. I also have worked out exactly how much we're producing of each. So we are producing a total of 2,050 beams. And on top of that, 4,680 steel pipes per minute when this is running at full capacity. But that is where we're at. The next thing I need to do is work out what we're going to do with the resources and also do a little bit of decorating. And of course, we do need to work on the next floor, which is going to be the encased industrial beams or pipes, which is going to be a much more efficient recipe for us. But I feel at this point, knowing that this floor is working, we can start to cover all of this in and block it all out, ready for us to actually do some decorating. So let's start off really simply with coated floors. I think this is going to really nicely contrast the white of the concrete. I'm going to place it here. We're also going to have opposing this section here, concrete line up to about here. Then we can run this around the outside. One thing that I do want to add to this build, I think I mentioned it in the last episode, was some kind of different color, because we always go for the white and gray and a little bit of black, and it works really well. But this build is looking so grey, given it's so big. It's starting to just look like this grey blob in like my world, and I think we need something kind of punchy for the actual facility. And so we'll have to play around with colours in a little bit. I think we might go with red because it looks really cool on those, and we also coloured our trains red as well, which look great. Now maybe we'll do green for copper, or possibly blue. We could do blue for this one maybe. So we'll play around with it and we'll see. Now, I think we can push this back just a touch further. So I'm going to keep on working at this. We also need to do something that stands out here. So from here, we're going to want to, I think, jut this out a bit. Go a little bit brutalist, possibly to here, and then we'll maybe one more so it's in front of this. Then from here we're going to bring it up and also run this back across. From here we can fill this out. I think we're going to have to do the same maybe here. We mimic the same angle on this side. Maybe that's too steep. Or maybe it's just right. You know what? I think this is too steep. If we were to push this out further, maybe using the 2 meter, I feel it needs to be slightly longer. It feels a little bit too squished at the moment. But we could, from here, if we grab some kind of wall, let's just, for now, we'll use this and I can change it if we need to. But by having a darker grey, we're going to add a fair bit of contrast to the build, which is going to look quite nice from afar. And I think the other thing that we can do, it needs to be pushed out. It needs to be wider. But we can repeat the same thing on this side as well. I think the problem is the angles are too steep. It does need to be a little bit longer, but I need to be using the 2 meters rather than the 4 meter ramps there. Otherwise it looks like, I don't know, a snake's face. We've got the eye, an open mouth, a tongue. Oh no, I can't unsee it now. Oh no. Okay, so good news. I managed to elongate out. I've also added this glass wall here because I figured that would be quite a nice little frontier along with these. We still need to do something along here in terms of decoration. I'm really not sure, but we're starting to block it out. But with the white, if we grab this, we can actually play around with this. If we use blue, that's not blue. Oh, dear me. There we are. It looks all right. It doesn't go with the red there. But if we end up changing it to more of a, like an orange, that stands out, but it kind of is too similar to that orange. So trying with the red, I think that pop, it could do with being like a darker red maybe. Yeah, look at that. Oh, I love that. I've also added the steel facility there. Actually, that's something that we need to do down here as well. And the next thing that we should look at is possibly this here. So for this, we're going to grab this color. It might look quite nice. We can run this all the way across and it should blend into the front that we've got there. Also, don't worry too much about this side that you can see here. I'm going to try and make it so that this build blends in like we've done down there, so it doesn't actually clip into the train line because this train line is going to head out to a train station. From here, we can bring this back up. And though it's tempting to run it back along the top there, I don't think we need to. We'll probably go with, I don't know, a dark grey. And I think we could probably do with maybe, I'd say 1 more, maybe 2 more lines of these, and then we'll just add a glass wall. And then we'll probably break this up with something as well in a little bit, because having just 1 large window, though it looks great on this side, I don't think it's something that you can just use all the time. I think if you use too much of a good thing, it kind of spoils it. I wonder, maybe we could use some lighting here as well. Let's just play around with this for a second. Could run that all the way along. Grab this and we'll go maybe every 2. And then the other thing that I'm going to want to do is to grab a billboard like so. And we can add this maybe every 2 in opposition to the pillars. That might work. And that obviously complements this section here. What else? Got all that to do. Obviously, I need to do all around the sides as well. You know what? It would be quite nice, thinking about it, to also have maybe something along here. Can we just run that to the edge? And this is just digging into the actual, it's maintaining its horizontal position. But if we grab a painted beam, we can run that all the way down, and we can now place this onto here, and that will be parallel to the ramp, which could look really nice if we do this maybe on both sides. And the infinite nudging also makes it really easy for us to just run these across to the other side as well. Right. Well, I'm going to finish working on this, and then we'll start working on the encased industrial beams. Well, wow, I'm really liking this build. I'm not sure what we're going to do down there. We'll probably just block it off, and we're going to have to block off all of this down here. But in terms of the build itself, it is really coming together, and that punchy red works perfectly. Because if we jump back a bit, you can quite clearly see it starting to pop up above the build. We do need to add another floor, and the idea is to make it more prominent, and then we're going to have the other facilities around it. With us now needing concrete, we will definitely have to rethink the plan once again, but it is good to be able to work with a plan. We're still going to do the copper. That will be above the smeltery. I think that's really important. And I don't know where we're going to put the copper facility. That is a problem for another total. So at this point, we're just making sure that we are filling in these sections. I think if we do on the back, something like 2, and then we'll have a glass window, and then we'll do 2 again. Kind of the opposite to what we did on the other side. Oh, you know what? It would be better, rather than do it with this, we use the half foundations. Run that all the way across. Then we grab our glass wall. Gonna slot that just inside. Do the same here. And we're playing with depth. That's all we ever do. We play around with the depth until we find something that works. I do feel we need something that pops. I would wonder, actually, if we remove this, what if we went with a big one and we turned it into this material that we've been using quite a bit? That works. And we need something to break these up. I think that is going to work beautifully along here. This is where our encased industrial beam facility is going to be. We need to work on the blueprint for that shortly. And then the other thing that we need to do is, before we do that, run this all the way along. And we'll probably keep this side quite plain and boring, dare I say. So we're going to have a train station on the side. So I don't see the need to put in too much effort on the design front. And we can just run this all the way across. And we'll just nudge that. I'm not sure about this section. If we just went with this to there, and then we brought that down, that would look better because then we could fill it out, I think. We can also run this all the way along here. Now we'll run the darker red. So you can see over here, we've got the darker red line. We'll run that all along the top of this as well. So we're maintaining this pattern all the way around the build. Just trying to keep it in keeping with the style that we're building. Having spent the last couple of hours working on the design, I mean, look at this. I love this little foyer. One thing that I hadn't thought about was how we're going to get to the top floor. So I've been running ramps all around the build, and it totally gazumped me. I was like, well, how are we going to get everything to the top floor? More specifically ourselves. And then it occurred to me that in, well, 1.1 we have the elevator. Oh dear. Well done, Total. Regardless, we are now ready to work on the encased industrial beams up here. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to grab myself a foundation for this all to be put on. So I'm thinking if we were to have these in the center, we could place 2 assemblers per blueprint, which would mean we're only placing 65 blueprints roughly, but we're going to want the resources underneath this. So it might be better for us to start off with placing the assemblers on a second floor. And, you know, thinking about it, we don't need 3. We could just straddle 2 foundations. That's probably going to be a lot more efficient for space for us, given we need so many of these. Also, haven't worked out how many we're going to need per line. And I guess it'll be up to the steel pipes, given the amount of steel pipes needed is the highest. So if we went with 780 divided by 24, that leaves us with 32.5. Goodness me, 32.5 per line. But if they're both being fed by the same, that's 16.25. So we could just overclock one of these by 25%. Yeah, that would work. Let's connect these up. I feel like the concrete doesn't really work for this build, actually. We could have it as the lower floor, but let's go with metal. We can have our merger up here, and that'll go back up the build afterwards. And we're going to want to have some splitters. So if we nudge these down, have one in this position and then another one. I love that they now snap underneath. That is a really nice quality of life addition. One thing that we are going to do is also make these connectable as well. So we're going to make sure that we have a section of conveyor on both ends. That way we're not going to have to connect everything up. And that's kind of it for the lower section. Maybe we want to add a little bit of decoration, which would come in the form of maybe some of these. We can also play around with maybe giving ourselves a little... Let's connect those up first and foremost. There. We can have a walkway above this. Let's add a railing along there, along here. We can add also maybe a metal wall. We never use the metal. Need to use that more often. And then the next thing that we can do is add some kind of ceiling to this. We can also go with maybe a larger billboard sign. I think we can go with white, you know. We normally go with blue. Let's switch it out a little bit. And we're going to have to block that out. So let's grab that. Maybe we could do two sections. Let's drop that down. I think that's yeah, there we go. That's better. I feel it still needs something in between it. Yeah, that can work. Actually, thinking about it, we could add also, obviously not all the way if we're cutting through. Wait, if we nudge this to there, how does that? Yeah, that doesn't cut through the conveyor. So we can do the same on this side as well. Okay, so there we are. That is it built. I am pretty happy with this. So the next thing that we need to do is delete all of this and get building. And we need to fit in 520 divided by 4 divided by 16.25. So we're looking at 8 lines of these. Oh, okay. Hopefully we've got enough room here. Let's get this show on the road. So for this, you need to make sure that the inputs are this side, and I also want them aligned to this. I don't mind there being a lip. That doesn't bother me. And we're gonna run these all along in auto connect mode, obviously, like so. And fingers crossed. Oh, something like that doesn't happen. We're gonna run these all the way along here. We need to do 16 in total, right? So we're on 8 at the moment, which means that 16. I think we're just gonna be in 2, 3, 4. Oh, fantastic. That means we can just lift the elevator up and we could do like a little walkway onto this. Hey, I'm liking this. Sweet. With that done, we can now start this side. How are we coming along? Oh, we're out of blooming beams. That's typical. we can't build the steel beams until we've got the concrete. So I'm going to have to go back. I think I've got some in a storage container just down here, so it shouldn't be too long. But we will build this out. Yeah, I think it'll come to about here. Sweet. Okay, it will fit in. Well, actually, will it fit in? We might have an issue over here, actually. Yeah, it's... I'm going to have to remove all of this, I think. Although, we might be okay. Okay, I'm going to get those... steel beams and we will be back. Okay, so we have 6. Is that right? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. I've moved this out the way, hoping. I think we might be just short. We might have ended up shy here. So let's just place this down, and here we get to see. As if it was planned. That is perfect. Okay, so we can just place all of these down. There is that one. So we still have another 7 to do. Once these are connected up from the steel pipes, which are coming up through here, we should, well, once we've got the concrete, that is, be able to run these quite efficiently. And then I'm going to need to grab a splitter because this one's going on the end. Oh, I didn't know we could just snap it to the end. Place our splitter. Actually wants to be on this one. There we go. From here we can connect this one to that one, and in straight mode connect that one up. And then we're going to have to do one around here. In fact, all of these can be around this side. We'll run it to these. Let's see if we've got enough resources now. Well, let's finish this. 1, 2, 3. Darn it. 4, 6. The game does not like me using so many blueprints, but we're going to have to be using a lot more. And that is snug like a bug. Wonderful. Oh, fantastic. I'm glad that's fit in so well. The next thing that we need to... Balls. I wasn't in auto connect. I've got to redo them all. Okay, so now that I've done that, we can start looking at the design of this once again. So we're going to bring these up. I think that high will do. And from here, we're going to run this all the way across to the end. And with this, what I will do is follow the exact same pattern that we were using before. Except for maybe on the top, instead of using this dark red, we'll have a gap. So if we just grab this lighter red for now, then we can run that all the way up, like so. Have a single red line at the top. We're going to have to paint these like black or carbon, either or, both the same. This, unfortunately, is going to be repeated all the way around the build. So it's going to take me a fair amount of time. And the other thing that I actually want to do is we're going to have to make a hole through here, because this is going to be a walkway, I think, across to this. So we can bring that up to about there and add another stop. We'll run this walkway. One thing that I do want my factories to be more of in the future is just generally more traversal. Traversable. And I'd also like them to be more easily accessed. I feel adding sign directions can be really beneficial, especially if people are touring the build as well. While we're at it, I'm going to repeat this all the way along. And I feel we could probably do some kind of border along here as well. That does mean that if we do the ceiling in line with this, we'll run this all the way along. We'll bring the walls up. And if we run these above our little concrete sections, we can work on making this section a sky window, which might look quite nice during the day. Ah! It's dark. Right, okay, we're going to jump to morning. I'll have this done. Just means that it's slightly easier viewing for you guys. We are now going to add in this section some rooftops. And we're going to go with, I think, let's go with the flat rooftop, and we can run that all the way along. And then we'll do the opposite side, followed by some glass in the center. And we'll have the wide section in the middle. That will bring us to this kind of aesthetic. Right, let's run these along all of the top, and then I'll show you the rest of the build, because we've been working all night. This is just the start. I'm really happy with this. And look at the trains running along. Ah, I love it. One thing that I didn't touch on when we were building this was how we were doing the logistics. I do apologize. I totally forgot. I got a little bit carried away. You can see we're wrapping the lines around the blueprint and just taking it up and along the center there. I also despite us having concrete just above the glass, I really like the reflections that we can see. With these, we have the pipes running down this one. So this is our 2 pipes that we're going to be taking back to our facility. And then all of these are the pipes that are being taken up to the next floor. But we do need to look at doing concrete. The next thing that I want to do is just take all of this. So these are our steel pipes, and we're going to run these down and then out to this section here. This is where we're going to be having our train station, and we're going to have to also work out how to bring our steel pipes and encased industrial beams across as well. We're going to have to bring the train line across here, which will be easy enough, and then we just need to work out where we want the actual train station, which we're going to want parallel to this, so maybe on this level. We're going to run this around, and then we're going to, I think, need to have some kind of T-junction, because I don't think we're going to be able to make the curve. Maybe we'll find a way to use the actual lower section. If not, I'm going to have to just delete it. Okay, so we have done the train line all the way to this area, which has been paved, ready for our train stations. We're going to try and squeeze 2 stations between these 2 so they can move back on. We need 2 train stations because we've got our steel beams and our encased industrial beams going to one of them. Let's try with that. And then from here we'll add 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to be for the steel beams because we had 2,050, was it? And then we have 1 for the encased industrial beams. And then across from this, don't know if we're going to be able to make it. I suppose we could place it around here, move it up a bit more. These will be for the pipes, so we can have this this way and then also round like that. The last thing we need to do is also connect these back onto the line, and from there we will get the resources into these. To be fair, we might be able to push this in because it's only over here that we have the pipes coming. So the pipes will run down to, I guess we need an industrial buffer thinking about it. Okay, so we might need to rework this slightly. I'm struggling. Oh, we're still not going to have enough room. I'm going to have to play around with this. It's taken a little bit of jiggling and wiggling, but we've actually managed to get it to fit. So I'm pretty happy with this now. And we actually have the iron pipes heading into the storage already. And all of these stations, so both of them, have a dedicated train that is heading to the sink over there. So that's the second one, the second steel one. That's the first one going. And look, I love it. It's heading underneath the factory. How cool is that? And once it's done, it's just going to run all the way around to the station, pick up the resources and drop them off again. And that way we're going to continue the throughput of resources. There's not going to be any holdup. There is one problem, of course, and that is, despite how beautifully designed this facility is, it doesn't really matter at the moment because, well, other than the iron pipe section, which is actually doing pretty well. It's not running at full capacity, but it's running. This whole facility is wasted because until we grab our concrete, it's not working. I mean, it'll be fine, but we've worked out we need another 2,400 concrete here. And if we just pop down here, 6,400 plus 2,400, that's 8,848 concrete that we need in order just to turn this facility on. And as much as I wish I could just ship all of that concrete here and be done with it, I'm not producing that much concrete at the moment, first and foremost. And secondly, that's going to put a huge strain on the train lines and the logistics because that's a lot of limestone. We're going to need limestone here anyway. Actually, that's even more limestone, thinking about it. Goodness me. So that really just gives us one option, which is to produce that concrete here. And we're going to have to do that in the next one. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, do hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. But special thanks, as always, does go to all of our incredible supporters on Patreon, most notably our Lunar Eclipse patrons, Firefless the Calamity, Ben and Star, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. But until next time, as always, ciao for now.